When we're eating together, it's hard to tell her apart from the other kids on the ship. The mess hall is loud, crowded. When she doesn't speak, it's easy to mistake her for one of the many quiet kids. On the long, lonely rotations, though, when there's just me, the ship's AI, Sam, and all the ghosts of the crew who died on Kepler 186F, she's more real than anyone else. I've been on this ship for 4 cycles now, but it feels like I've known her my whole life. We got here on the same transport, 20 of us, half human, half Solari, with a smattering of Trellin and Volari thrown in. We were the lucky ones. We got a trial transfer off Kepler 186F, aka the Boneyard. The ship's manifest listed us as survivors. But survivors of what? Only I knew the answer to that. And even then, I wasn't sure if I believed it myself. I remember the day they brought her onto the ship. I was working in the hydroponics bay, coaxing microgreens into life under the sickly yellow lights. There were 2 of them, the alien girl and a Solari male. The humans, bless their big, beating hearts, didn't know what to do with him. He was too big, too strong, too much of a liability. With her, though, they weren't so sure. She looked barely older than me, which was 14, give or take a few years. But she was wiry and sharp-eyed, and had an unnerving stillness about her that set the hairs on my arms on end. At first, I thought it was some cruel misunderstanding, that maybe their species didn't register hunger the same way, that maybe the sight of her curling tighter into the corner of the mess hall floor, arms wrapped around her thin frame, was something they just didn't see. But they saw. They saw her ribs. They saw the way she eyed the leftovers scraped into waste tubes. They saw her crawl once, just once, toward a dropped nutrient pouch, before Solari kicked it away and howled with laughter. And they laughed. It wasn't the cold, calculated laugh of a predator. It was the vicious, gleeful cackling of people who had power and knew exactly how to use it to grind down something smaller, something weaker, something that couldn't fight back. She was the only one of her kind on the ship. I never learned the name of her species. No one bothered to tell me. No one bothered to tell her either, probably. Not that she spoke. Not that she even lifted her head anymore. She was just it to them. Scavenger, rat, mute filth. Experiment scrap. Cargo trash. It wasn't until my 4th rotation on the maintenance deck that I saw her up close. The alien girl was sitting in the shadows near the intake valve, curled around her knees like she was trying to vanish into herself. Her skin shimmered faintly, like scales, but soft, almost translucent. I could count every joint in her fingers. Her eyes, when they flicked up at me, were a pale, glassy violet. They didn't have hope in them. They didn't even have fear. Just resignation. She expected me to kick her. That's what broke something inside me. I didn't kick her. I sat down. I unsealed my lunch pack and offered it, slowly, both hands open. Standard rations, nothing special, tangy rice cake, protein gel stick, water. She stared. Didn't move. So I opened the gel, broke off a piece of rice, and took a bite. Then I offered it again. It took her almost 5 minutes. Then, like a wild animal, too tired to be scared anymore, she reached out with trembling hands and took the rest. The look she gave me, not grateful, not relieved, just stunned. She ate like she hadn't tasted food in days, maybe weeks. No one said anything the first time. But on the 3rd day, when I brought an extra portion and passed it to her again, the whispering started. The Solari sneered. The Trellin clicked their beaks in mockery. Even some of the humans rolled their eyes. "She's not yours," one muttered. "Let the trash rot." But I kept bringing food. Not out of pity, not out of guilt. Because no one else would. Because when she ate, her hands shook a little less. Her eyes met mine a little longer. She never spoke. I don't even know if she could. But on the 7th day, she placed her bony fingers over the pouch. before I opened it and tilted her head ever so slightly, like a question. I nodded. "Come eat with me," I said quietly, sliding down the wall to sit beside her again. That was the first time she almost smiled. The food situation is dire. Rations have been cut and supplies are low, but things are worse for some than others. For those whose dietary needs aren't being met, hunger has become a weapon. This is a story about a girl who came from a very long way to study under the stars. This is the story of an explorer who woke up one morning and realized that he was on alone. He saw her every day, always waiting for him. Obviously not like some pet sitting by the door. No, she kept her distance. But he knew she was there, near the same ductwork shadow outside the mess hall, just barely in sight when his shift ended. Still silent, still watchful. He never waved. Didn't want to draw attention. But he always turned just enough for her to know he'd seen her. And then they'd walk. Together, but never side by side. Quiet orbit. No one stopped them. Not yet. The ship was big and old transport retrofit into a multi-species science vessel. But now little more than a political display. Look how united we are. Look at the cooperation. Lies, unities, just a curtain. Behind it, species still sorted themselves by superiority. And hers, whatever she was, she didn't even make the list. One night, when the corridors were nearly empty, he brought her a proper ration bar, the kind meant for officers. He'd been hoarding it for a week. She took it with shaking hands. Halfway through eating it, she paused, looked at him. Then, gently, she tore the bar in half and offered the rest back. He didn't take it. He just smiled, shook his head. "You need it more than I do." That was the first time she touched his hand. Not a grip, just a light press, like she was checking if he was real. And then she pulled back so fast, he thought he'd imagined it. That night, he didn't sleep much, but someone else had seen them. He didn't know it yet. The next cycle, she wasn't at the usual spot. Nor the next. On the third day, he found her in the recycling chamber locked inside one of the maintenance cages. Her lip was bleeding, and her eyes, those strange, soft, glassy eyes, were full of something he hadn't seen before. Shame, she didn't cry. She didn't move. He punched in his override code, broke the lock, and pulled her out. She flinched like he'd hit her. He didn't say a word. Just took off my jacket, wrapped it around her shoulders, and walked her out. That was the day everything changed. They fell into a routine. He'd come to the recycling room twice a day. Once when his shift started, once when it ended. She'd sneak out. They'd walk together, sometimes talking, sometimes not. They both had secrets, things we couldn't share, things we didn't dare speak aloud. But there was safety in the silence, a kind of freedom. Then the whispers started. At first, they were just that, whispers. Then they became murmurs. When the murmurs became shouts, he knew they were in danger. He found her by their alcove, her back pressed against the wall, her knees pulled up to her chest. Her eyes were squeezed shut, but he could see the tears tracing paths through the grime on her face. Before he could speak, she looked up, her expression a mixture of fear and defiance. "I don't want to go," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I won't go with you," he said, stepping closer. She flinched, but he ignored it, reaching out a hand to cup her cheek. His thumb brushed away a tear. "Don't cry," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "It'll be all right." He could feel the trembling of her body, the tension in her shoulders. But as he held on to her, whispering reassurances, he felt a sense of calm wash over her. Maybe it was the touch, the physical contact that transcended the boundaries of their different species. Or perhaps it was the silent promise he was offering her, a promise to stand by her side, to face whatever came next together. He stayed with her until the moment when their hands were pulled apart and she was dragged away. The journey from the recycling chamber to the brig was a blur. the shouts and jeers of the crowd echoing in his ears. He watched helplessly as she disappeared through the heavy steel doors. The doors that symbolized their unity, their togetherness, their lives. In the days that followed, he became a shadow, haunting the corridors, searching for answers, searching for her. But all he found were closed doors and evasive whispers. It wasn't until he stumbled upon a hidden terminal that the truth revealed itself. The ship's log revealed a chilling plan. A plan to purge the ship of its unwanted. A purge that began with her. Betrayed, angry, he confronted the captain, demanding answers, demanding action. But the captain's response was a cold display of authority. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and most importantly, out of the loop. With a heavy heart, he returned to the brig, hoping for a last glimpse of her, a final goodbye. But the cell was empty. The only evidence of her presence, a torn blanket on the floor, and a single tear that glistened on the metal bars. As he stepped out of the brig, he knew he couldn't stay on that ship, not without her. So he did the only thing he could, escape. When the escape pod streaked through the atmosphere of the distant planet, he knew he might never see her again. Yet as he looked up at the star-studded sky, a single star shining brighter than the rest, he felt a surge of hope. Maybe somewhere out there, under that same star, she was watching him, waiting for him. And maybe one day, if he searched hard enough, he'd find her again. When the ship med bay patched me through, I knew what they were thinking. Why, at first, all I got for an answer was silence. Then a single word, hungry. I didn't have to ask who. It wasn't hard to guess. On a ship full of ghosts, the only sounds you heard were the hum of machinery and the scrape of footsteps in the corridors. There were no good choices here, just less bad ones. I could turn her over to the ship's command. They'd probably put her in stasis until we reached port. But that wasn't right. She needed more than preservation. She needed a chance. I also knew I couldn't keep her on the ship. If anyone found out I was harboring a Solari, I'd get thrown off without a trial. They weren't playing when it came to interspecies relations. Even glancing at a human woman the wrong way could get you labeled a pervert. But I didn't need labels. I already knew I was one, so I made a choice. I lied to command. Said I found the Salati scavenging in the hydroponics bay and planned to turn her in. But I figured she'd be better off if I took her off planet. There wasn't much time. We had a week before our scheduled stop at the Lagrange point. My plan was risky, maybe even stupid, but it was all I had. So I stole a shuttle. I strapped her into the co-pilot seat and set a course for the nearest star system. I didn't bother with autopilot. The closer we got to our destination, the more likely it was that someone would intercept us. I figured I had a better shot if I was flying manually. Besides, this was the last chance I'd have to breathe real air, to feel the sun on my skin, to see stars that weren't pinpoints of light. Once we cleared the outer atmosphere, I turned on the intercom. "We're clear," I said, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. "I'm taking her off planet. I won't be able to hide her much longer, but I'll try to make a life for her. If they find her, if they find us, I'll take the blame. You won't get hurt because of me." She didn't respond right away. I could hear her breathing though, and that was enough. The Lagrange point is a haven for smugglers and independent traders. It's a lawless place, a black hole of space where anything goes. I knew I could disappear there, at least for a while. The second I landed, I cut off all communications and sealed myself inside the shuttle. I didn't want to wait until someone found me. I wanted to stay one step ahead. 2 days later, a message blinked on my personal terminal. No sender, no signature. We see your pet's hungry again. Maybe next time she eats off the floor, you can join her. I didn't show it to command. What would they do? Open an investigation. Discipline the Solari guards. This ship didn't work that way. No one cared enough. And those that did, they'd learned to look away long ago. I didn't. The next time I saw her, she had fresh bruises along her collarbone, purple, swollen. No words passed between us. I just handed her a sealed nutrient tube. She stared at it, then at me. Then she threw it. It hit the wall and burst. I didn't flinch, didn't react. She stood there, breathing hard, shoulders shaking, violet eyes glowing in the low light. Something wild flared behind them, anger, maybe, or sorrow. I couldn't tell. I know, I whispered. I know it's not enough. She collapsed, then not from hunger, but from something else, something heavier. I caught her before she hit the floor. She was colder than before. Her skin, nearly translucent now, shimmered like a dying flame. I carried her back to my cabin. They told us not to mix quarters. They told us not to bring non-human species into personal spaces. They told us a lot of things. I laid her on the bunk, turned up the heat, and stayed there, unmoving until her breathing steadied. She didn't eat that night. She didn't speak. But before I fell asleep in the chair beside her, I felt something wrap around my fingers. Her hand? She held on until morning. The days after that blurred. I'd return from maintenance and she'd be there quiet, barely moving, always watching the door. She still hadn't spoken a word. I wasn't sure she could. But something had shifted. She no longer flinched when I entered. She started accepting food without hesitation. Once, I found her holding the corner of my jacket sleeve in her sleep, like a child scared of disappearing again. That moment gutted me more than anything. But nothing on that ship stayed secret for long. It began with the glances. The way the Solari guards narrowed their eyes when they saw her in the corridor. The muttering from the Trellin, who hissed words I couldn't translate but didn't need to. The sneers, the laughter. And then came the announcement. A public display on the mess hall screens. All non-essential life forms will be reclassified for resource optimization. Unauthorized species will be removed from the manifest. I remember her sitting beside me on the mess floor, trying to peel open a ration wrap with trembling fingers when the screen lit up. She froze. Then slowly, she turned to me, her eyes wide. Violet and silent and breaking. "No," I whispered. "You're not unauthorized." But I don't think she believed me. That night, I found her missing again. I searched every storage bay, every ventilation crawl, every service chute. Hours passed. The ship was too big, too quiet. Then I heard it. A low, dry cough, barely audible, echoing from behind the coolant. Tanks in maintenance deck 4. I found her curled beneath a bundle of heat cables, trying to stay warm. Alone. Hiding. I dropped to my knees beside her. "You don't have to run from them," I said, breath catching. "You don't have to hide." She looked at me for a long time. Then she reached out, not for the food I had brought, but for my hand. And finally, she whispered. One word. Her voice was cracked, paper thin, barely alive. Why? It broke my heart all over again. But I knew I had to tell her. I owed her that much. I stood, brushing crumbs from my coveralls. "Because no one should starve surrounded by people eating," I told her. "Is that so?" A new voice cut in. Tall, sleek, Trellin. "Captain Rykov. And what are you doing here? You know this section is off limits to species not on maintenance duty." He gestured to the humans. "We have orders. All unauthorized personnel must report to the brig." His forearms twitched, flexing. I knew what those hands were capable of. I stepped in front of her, shielding her with my body. "She doesn't have clearance, but I do. This is a rescue mission, Captain. We're not hurting anyone, just leaving." I forced myself to meet his cold stare. "And if you want to hurt us, you'll have to go through me." Rykov laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Brave words from a dying man. "Terran, you're just a lab rat. What makes you think you can defy Starboard? You have two choices. Come quietly or be removed from the ship as waste." He took a step closer, pressing. "Think about your crew, Terran. They won't hesitate to eliminate you if it comes down to it. My blood ran cold. He was bluffing, but he didn't know how badly he was playing himself. She hasn't eaten in weeks, I managed, hoping to appeal to whatever humanity he might have left. If we leave her now, she won't survive. She's too weak. So be it. He spat, arms twitching. Then remove her. Throw her in the brig. Let her die there. Let us see how much you care. Qua. He gave me a final, chilling look. Qua. But be warned, Terran, you interfere with Starboard's mission again, and I will not hesitate to destroy you both. With that, he turned and stalked away. As soon as he was gone, I turned back to the girl. He's bluffing, I promised, though my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. I helped her to her feet and tucked the ration wrap into her jacket pocket. Whatever Rykov wanted, he wouldn't get it. Not while I had a single breath left. Not while I could still protect her. As long as I could keep her safe. That's all that mattered. For now, we had to disappear again, hide from the guards, evade detection. We didn't have much time before they started searching. Taking a deep breath, I pulled her toward the shadows. Come on, I whispered. We have to go. We melted into the darkness, two small figures swallowed by the vastness of the ship. Ahead of us lay danger, yes, but also hope. A fragile, flickering thing, but hope nonetheless. In the endless black, we were alone. Hopeless, I felt her small hand tighten around mine, her trust a silent plea. And I knew no matter what happened next, I would face it for her. For once, I didn't feel like I was running in vain, 'cause even in the darkest void, hope finds a way to bloom. Let's talk about your relationship with food. What is it? For most people, it's an easy question. Food is fuel. It's pleasure. It's love. But for those who've experienced famine, food is power. I learned that lesson the hard way, aboard the spaceship Exodus. I am one of the few humans left in the galaxy. Most of us perished on generation ships bound for new worlds. I woke up 40 years into the voyage to find myself the sole survivor on the Exodus. Or so I thought. I found another human shortly after, a young woman named Alara. She was different from me. Her skin was the color of burnished copper. Her hair, a thick shock of white. Her eyes, pools of molten gold. She was a Solari, part of an ancient race that predated even the universe we lived in now. She remembered a time before the stars were old. She remembered a time before the stars went out. The ship's AI called her an anomaly, a glitch in the matrix, a ghost from a dead timeline. It tried to kill her. I stopped it. We were two anomalies in a dying ship hurtling toward a dead end. And somehow, we managed to make it work. But we weren't alone. There were others on board, creatures of pure energy who fed off the ship's power and thrived on human flesh. We kept finding more of them, their forms shifting and growing stronger with each passing day. And with each passing day, Alara grew weaker. She barely ate or drank. She barely spoke. She spent most of her time hunched over in the corner of the maintenance room, wrapped in a blanket we found in storage, watching the floor. And I wanted to help her, but I couldn't reach her. Then one day I realized she reminded me of someone I once knew, someone I loved, someone I lost in the collapse. And I understood. Grief doesn't always take a lifetime. Sometimes it takes a galaxy. So I did the only thing I could do. I sat down next to her and I told her stories. Stories of the world before, of humanity and Earth, of laughter and light. And she listened. For hours, days, weeks, I talked until the oxygen recycler kicked on and the recycled air filled my lungs with stale recycled hope. And when it was quiet, I'd tell her jokes. And then something shifted after that whisper. As if speaking made her real in her own mind again. As if asking why gave her permission to exist. She began sitting closer, looking me in the eyes longer. She still barely spoke, but her presence felt louder. One day, I handed her a small wrapped bar of cocoa ration, a rare treat. She took it gently, then looked up at me and asked, barely audible, "Is this just for me?" I nodded. She didn't eat it. Instead, she broke it in half and handed the other piece back to me. That moment, the galaxy tilted on its axis. It was more than generosity. It was trust, and trust on this ship was rebellion. Because others had started noticing, crew member left graffiti on my locker door, "Traitor to your kind." Another dumped spoiled ration pasted into my locker, ruining my only spare uniform. The worst came in the mess. 3 Solari blocked our usual spot. 1 shoved me as we passed. The girl froze behind me. "You feeding strays now human," one sneered. I stared at him, didn't answer. The second guard leaned in. "You gonna let her eat while we go hungry?" We weren't going hungry. Supplies were low, yes, but no one was starving. Except the ones no one counted. Except her. So I stepped forward, just enough that my shadow crossed their trays. I said calmly, "If you ever touch her food or look at her again like that, I will remind you what hunger really feels like." They laughed, but they didn't stop me. That night, she left a tiny drawing scratched into the wall of the maintenance room. A stick figure with big eyes holding hands with a smaller one. She didn't say it was us. She didn't have to. And I knew then we might not have been alone in the universe. Not anymore. Because as long as there was one of us, there would always be 2. This story was inspired by a piece of art. So let's begin. She started humming. Not loud, not even melodic, but soft vibrations in the silence, like her soul was trying to remember its shape. I didn't interrupt. It became a pattern. She'd hum while cleaning a tool or watching me recalibrate a system node. It was soothing like background light in a ship that had known only darkness. Her humming stopped abruptly one day when we were charting a course through an unfamiliar nebula. "Are we lost?" she asked. I shook my head, eyes glued to the swirling chaos of the stellar nursery. Not lost, just finding our way. Technically, we weren't lost. We had plenty of fuel and enough provisions to last another 10 years. But the truth was, I didn't know where I was going. I'd taken the ship beyond the rim of the galaxy, farther than any human had ever dared to go. And out here, the laws of physics seemed to have taken a holiday. Our route was littered with uncharted phenomena, things that defied the navigational charts we carried. But I kept pushing on, deeper into the maelstrom, desperate to outrun the ghost that haunted my past. One night, she pointed at my data tablet. "What's that?" I hesitated, then activated the display. It was a map, a log of our journey, every star system we'd marked. She ran her fingers over it like it was something sacred. They used to tell us stories about these stars. My grandmother told me we'd never leave our cages, but you, look. Her finger trembled, pointing at a dot far across the chart. "You crossed that." With me, I looked down, didn't speak. Because she wasn't wrong, she had crossed that with me. I'd found her as a young girl, barely clinging to life aboard a derelict ship. The last survivor of a colony that had been wiped out by an unknown pathogen. I took her with me, more out of pity than anything else. At first, she was skittish, startled by the simplest of sounds, flinching at every shadow. But slowly, she began to bloom, taking an almost feral delight in the shipboard tasks I taught her. Her laughter echoing through the corridors like the chimes of a long-dead civilization. Then she started humming again, filling the ship with the music of her ancestors. But the crew wasn't fond of it. Most of them had lost everyone in the Exodus. Their families, their friends, their lovers. They clung to the belief that there was nothing beyond the rim, that the galaxy ended at the known stars. Anything beyond that was heresy, an insult to the dead. For them, the silence was hallowed ground, a space to be filled only with grief. One night, a high-ranking officer found us talking, But he didn't yield, didn't even scold. He just stared at her like she was an infection I had brought on board. You think giving scraps and sympathy changes what she is? What she is, sir, I said, standing up, is someone who survived. He paused, considering that. That's not survival. That's infestation. I clenched my jaw so tight it hurt. The girl, for once, didn't flinch. She stood next to me, didn't hide. And when he walked away, she whispered, "You spoke like I mattered." I smiled, not for her, but because that officer had no idea. That moment wasn't kindness. That moment was the beginning of defiance. As the weeks passed, I watched her turn from a cowering child into a defiant teenager. She challenged the officers, questioned their directives, even got into fights with the crew, all because they couldn't accept her as one of them. But I saw something in her, a spark that ignited whenever she looked up at the stars. A yearning for something beyond the confines of our ship, something she couldn't quite grasp. And then one day, she vanished. I searched everywhere, but it was as if she'd never been here. Just as I was about to raise the alarm, I spotted something on the view screen, a small shuttle, its engines whining as it punched through the atmosphere of a nearby planet. It was her. She was out there exploring, discovering, learning. And in that moment, I knew no matter how much the galaxy tried to confine her, she would never be cargo again. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you want to hear more science-themed stories, subscribe for more content. We found her by the hydroponics bay, nestled amongst the leafy greens, tucked away from everything. She was barely a whisper of a girl, no taller than the nutrient tanks, maybe 9, 10 years old. The officers wanted to send her away, get rid of her. Something about liabilities and contamination. Me, I saw something else. Kid with too much life in her eyes. A kid who needed a purpose. So I took her under my wing. Sort of. I brought her to the mess hall, introduced her around. Within minutes, she was helping serve up nutrient paste and answering the head chef's questions about hers, with the same curiosity that burned in her eyes. It wasn't long after the officer incident that she began asking questions. Real ones. What is Earth like? Do you have forests, oceans, birds? Why do humans say sorry so much? At first, I answered like I was talking to a child. Then one day she stopped me. I'm not broken. I just never had someone answer before. I nodded. From that day forward, I didn't explain things down to her. I shared them with her. We'd sit in the engine room, plates of leftover rations between us. And I'd tell her about sunsets over mountain ranges and the sound trees made when the wind passed through like a song. Sometimes she'd go quiet. Other times, she'd try to mimic the words sunset, breeze, birdsong. Once, I handed her a protein bar. She turned it in her hands, then tore off a piece and held it out. You gave me food, now I give you. I took it without hesitation. She smiled wide maybe for the first time. That was 2 months ago. Now, every morning, I wake up before the others, sneak into the hydroponics bay, grab a handful of fresh berries and bring them to her. In return, she brings me news. The head chef has learned to make scrambled eggs. The medic has grown a beard. The captain is looking for volunteers to man the new long-range scanners. I always listen, but most days, I don't ask for more. Most days, I don't need more. But today, she looks up at me, her brow furrowed. The captain, she begins, and I feel my heart seize. This isn't good. He wants to see you. Of course, I know why. They've been eyeing me for weeks now, ever since rumors spread about my little friend. Every day, I weigh my options. Stay and face whatever comes or leave, and hope the ship doesn't reach its destination without me. My gut churns with dread, but there's no use denying it. They'll find me, drag me away, scrap the evidence. So I nod and follow her. We walk past the mess hall where the head chef waves, his smile strained. Then we turn toward the captain's quarters. I can hear the murmur of voices, the shuffling of feet. I can feel their gazes burning holes through me, through my lie. I'm almost glad when they finally stop. "Come in," the captain says, gesturing to the seat opposite him. His face is grim, his shoulders slumped. He looks tired. Captain, about what happened last night, He cuts me off. "Your secret's safe with me," he says, his gaze fixed on the view screen. "I won't force you to leave, but I suggest you go. She's better off without you. All of us are." I nod, understanding dawning on me. It isn't just me they want gone. It's her. It's both of us. She steps forward, placing a hand on my arm. "Don't go," she whispers. "I have to," I reply, squeezing her hand. "But promise me you'll be okay." She nods, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I stand up, brush past the captain, and head for the door. Not long after, I hear shouts, footsteps, the clang of metal on metal. When I round the corner, I see several crew members restraining the girl. Her face is twisted in anger. She's kicking, screaming. The captain stands nearby, watching. I run to her, pushing past the crew members. I kneel down, holding out my hand. "Let me help," I say to the captain. He shakes his head. "It's too late," he says. "She's agitated. I'm sorry, but she's better off sleeping." He gestures to a hypo spray in the hands of one of the crew members. I look down at it, then back at the captain. My heart breaks. "Is this really the only way?" he asks. I can't speak. I watch as they inject her with a sedative. Her eyes widen, her struggles grow weak. She looks down at her lap, then back at me. "Sorry," she whispers, and with that, she falls limp in their arms. I scramble back, shielding my face. No, she can't be gone. Not yet. Not now. I turn and run, racing through the ship, away from her screams, away from their shouts, away from the only home I've ever known. It's been 6 months since I arrived at the Exodus with her. 6 months since we fled the prison colony. 6 months since I brought the weapon that saved us all. 6 months of silence from her. She still sleeps in the med bay next to me, but she spends most of her days alone in the hydroponics lab, tending to plants. And she eats. Now she eats with us more often. It's not just me, us. It isn't some big dramatic shift. It happened in small moments. A silent nod. An extra spoon handed her way. A seat left open during meal rotation. No one said anything about it, but no one stopped it either. One day, a junior comms tech, barely 20, always jittery, sat across from her in the mess. She flinched at first. He saw her reaction and slowly pushed his food tray forward. "Trade?" he asked. She looked at him like he'd just handed her a galaxy. They swapped their protein bars, and that was it. But something happened after that. The shift wasn't just inside, hurt spread. Crew who once scoffed or ignored her now occasionally nodded when passing. She nodded back. The old technician, the one with the plasma burns, started calling her kid. Even the mess officer who once said she doesn't belong here now includes a labeled tray for her at the end of the line. No words, just quiet routine. And one evening, I found her standing outside the rec bay, just staring. "They invited me," she said, "to a game. Ball and wall." I raised a brow. "You mean handball?" She blinked. "Yes, handball." She turned, gripping the doorframe like it might disappear. Should I go? It isn't my choice to make. So I just asked her, "Do you want to?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped through the door. Later, I watched through the panel window. She didn't play well, arms too thin. Coordination awkward, but no one laughed. They passed her the ball, she missed. They passed it again. She hit the wall this time. A little cheer went up. And when she finally scored, she looked toward the window. She didn't wave. She just smiled. And in that instant, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. She didn't need me anymore. She had started becoming someone new. Not an outsider, but a crew member, K person. Now, before you start thinking I'm some kind of hero, let me clarify a few things. 1. I didn't save her. We saved each other. 2. She can take care of herself. 3. I am not in love with her. Okay? Because if you think I'm in love with her, then you're the one who's delusional. 4. It's not easy being around her. Her silence is deafening. Her eyes are sharp and knowing. And sometimes when I'm trying to sleep, I hear her whisper the name of the prison colony, Elsbeth. And then she's crying out, "Get up, get up." We have to go, but I don't. I stay asleep. I stay asleep because the only way I can handle her is by convincing myself that what we had was a fling, nothing more. That this whole situation was a mistake. That I owe her nothing. And maybe that's true. Maybe she's better off without me. Maybe she really is better off without me. But here's the thing. There's no guarantee that anyone will ever come for us. There's no guarantee that anyone will ever find this place. And so I try to do right by her in my own way, in the only way I know how. I try to be the person she needs me to be. It's been 6 months since I arrived here with her. And now when I close my eyes, I see not just her, but the entire crew, laughing, fighting, eating, sleeping, existing. I see them all, every single one of them, including her, and they're all depending on me. And suddenly, the weight of the past 6 months crashes down on me. The guilt, the fear, the responsibility, it all comes flooding back. And I wonder how much longer I can keep this up, how much longer I can pretend to be someone I'm not. Because maybe she doesn't need me anymore. Maybe she's better off without me. But the truth is, I need her. And maybe that's why I'm still here. They say change comes slowly, but sometimes it breaks like a storm. It started with a transmission. One of the outer patrol drones picked up a ship. Stealth configured. Old tech, but fast. Not ours. Not friendly. "It's her," the captain said grimly. Same species signature. They came back. Suddenly, the looks returned. Not of pity or curiosity, but fear. We had seen what her people did before. To our colonies, to their own. She sat alone in the corner again. Tray untouched. Eyes locked on the wall. Like she'd been waiting for this. "You knew they'd come back," I said. She didn't answer. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Did they come for you?" She looked up, finally meeting my eyes. "They won't ask. They'll take." The words struck cold. We held a quiet emergency session. Some wanted to detain her. Others argued she had proven herself. But when the vote came, it was close. Too close. The mess officer who once labeled a tray with her name voted to lock her down. I stood and said one thing. If we do this, we tell her she never belonged. Silence. Another voice, "She saved the comm system last week. Fixed it faster than any of us." A murmur spread, growing louder. Finally, the captain turned to her and asked, "Do you want to stay?" She didn't blink. "Yes." "Do you want to fight if they board us?" She stood slowly. "I'll die for this crew." Dead silence. And then, slowly, one by one, the crew stood with her. Even the mess officer. No one laughed this time. Not even once. Later, I found her by the view screen watching the ship. They'd cut power to the outer docks. No one was immune to that. So she watched as they brought in a boarding ramp, linking the two ships. "You have their attention," I said, surprised. She turned, startled, then nodded, understanding. The bridge crew had briefed her. The captain wanted to know if she could get them to turn back, to talk. "Can you?" I asked, hoping we hadn't made a mistake. "Maybe," she said, stepping away from the screen. "I'll see what I can do." As she passed, the first mate stopped her. "Wait here." He brought her back to the view screen. "Watch your people land. See how they move. Learn their tactics. You can use this knowledge to help us if they board. Maybe even if they don't." She nodded, but her eyes were distant. When she moved away, the captain spoke. "You understand, we're not holding you now, right? But we're not that crew anymore. You've earned your place here. Prove it." And with that, she was gone. Hours crawled by. The ship on the screen changed course, coming about. Then the ramp lowered again. Figures came out. 2 of them fell to their knees before the ramp, vomiting bugs. The third one stayed upright, his face hidden under a hood. The boarding party. We had 3. The captain, the engineer, the best fighter we had. The first mate called out, "Let's go. Let's show them what we're made of." With a grin, I followed him out the airlock. She waited until we were all suited up, helmets in place. Then she spoke into the intercom. Here they are. 3 hostiles. Approach Vector 1, 2 o'clock low. A moment of silence. Then, thanks. Gotcha. And with that, the battle began. Hey there, Commander. Thanks for watching. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. If you liked the story, please hit like. It helps a lot. Also, hey, if you're new here, welcome to the family. Come for the stories. Stay because you want to hear more. Until next time, fly safe. This is the mess hall aboard the spaceship. Humanity's best and brightest are seated around these tables, eating synthetic steaks and drinking recycled water. They're laughing, joking, arguing over something on their tablets. But suddenly, the mood shifts. The door slides open and a group of armed soldiers marches in. In their midst is a woman. No, a girl. No, a child. She's small for her age, thin, with dirt smudged on her face and wild hair escaping her makeshift bandage. She stands out amongst the clean, crisp uniforms of the crew. Her mismatched clothes a stark reminder of who they once were. Refugees from a dying planet. The child stops, eyes wide with fear as the crew members part before her, making a path towards the captain's table. The soldiers stop in front of the table, blocking the view of the child. The officers exchange uneasy glances. Something about this scene feels wrong. The girl's too young to be alone, let alone in the middle of a military operation. Who are these soldiers? What do they want? And why is a child involved? The crew member closest to the door steps forward, attempting to speak with the soldiers. He gestures towards the child, clearly distressed by the situation. But his attempts at communication are met with harsh, guttural responses. The soldiers remain impassive, their gazes fixed on the table. They seem intent on conveying a message, but they refuse to explain themselves. As the standoff continues, the child begins to cry out, her distress echoing through the mess hall. Her small voice rings with desperation. She begs for help, for someone to understand what's happening. The crew members react with concern, reaching out to comfort the child, but the soldiers stand firm, shielding her from their grasp. Suddenly, the child stops crying. She wipes away her tears, composing herself with a strength that belies her years. She stands tall, facing the soldiers with newfound resolve. She doesn't know what's going on, but she senses danger. She knows she must do something. Just then, one of the soldiers steps aside, revealing a figure seated at the captain's table. It's the ship's captain, his face etched with worry. He's been monitoring the situation, carefully observing the interactions between the soldiers and the child. He understands the gravity of the moment and knows he must act. With a determined nod, the captain rises from his seat and walks towards the soldiers, his presence commanding attention. He engages in a series of rapid-fire exchanges with the lead soldier, his tone firm but respectful. The captain is trying to understand the situation, seeking a peaceful resolution. As the conversation continues, a glimmer of understanding dawns on the captain's face. He turns to the crew, his expression grave. He explains that the soldiers are here for the child, claiming she's a defect and must be returned. The revelation shocks the crew. Why would they claim the child is defective? What could be so wrong with her? The captain addresses the soldiers, expressing his refusal to comply with their request. He asserts that the child is under their protection and will not be harmed. A tense silence fills the mess hall as the two groups stand their ground, each unwilling to back down. The fate of the child hangs in the balance, caught between the claims of defect and the determination to protect her. The standoff reaches a fever pitch, and it becomes clear that a compromise must be reached. The captain, recognizing the futility of a physical confrontation, decides to negotiate. He offers to accompany the child back with the soldiers, ensuring her safety and well-being. With this agreement, the captain and the soldiers prepare to leave, their figures disappearing into the ship's corridors. Back in the mess hall, the crew members turn to the child, their faces etched with concern. They offer words of comfort and reassurance, acknowledging her bravery and strength. They share stories of hope and resilience, reminding her that even in the darkest moments, there is always light to be found. Together, the crew forms a circle around the child, their hands resting on her shoulders, their eyes filled with kindness and compassion. They stand united, ready to support and protect her as she navigates the challenges that lie ahead. Days turn into weeks, and the child finds solace in the company of the crew. She learns to laugh again, her infectious joy filling the mess hall with warmth. The crew, in turn, find joy in her presence, their hearts healing from the wounds of the past. One evening, as the crew gathers for dinner, a sense of unease settles over them. The memory of the soldiers' visit lingers in their thoughts. They wonder about the child's fate, hoping for the best, but fearing the worst. Suddenly, the door to the mess hall slides open, revealing the captain. His face is etched with determination, and he carries a small suitcase in his hand. As he approaches the table, he opens the suitcase, revealing rows of shiny new spacesuits. Each suit is meticulously designed, bearing the insignia of the crew's organization. The crew members exchange excited glances, a sense of purpose rekindled in their eyes. The captain announces that they will be launching a rescue mission to retrieve the child from the other ship. The crew wastes no time in preparing for the mission. They check their equipment, run simulations, and brief each other on procedures. Their movements are swift and efficient, driven by their determination to bring the child home. As the day of the mission arrives, the crew boards their shuttle, their faces grin with determination. They blast off into space, leaving the safety of their ship behind. The journey to the other ship is fraught with danger. The crew encounters asteroid fields, navigates treacherous nebulae, and outruns dangerous space debris. But through it all, they remain focused on their objective. Finally, they reach the other ship. The sight before them is both awe-inspiring and daunting. The crew prepares for docking, their hearts pounding with anticipation. As they enter the ship, they find themselves in a vast, dimly lit corridor. The air is thick with tension, and the silence is deafening. When they finally arrived, it wasn't a battle, it was a reckoning. The enemy vessel docked without clearance. No hails, no warnings. Just the hiss of pressure locks and a corridor full of tension. We were ready. She stood in front of us, no weapons, just a thin, worn jacket from our crew quarter issue. When the ramp opened, 3 of them walked in her species, but larger, armored, moving like they owned the air. They stopped when they saw her. She didn't flinch. "You came to take me." One of them nodded. "You are defective. Return now, and your trial will be merciful." She didn't move. No. They looked past her at USAT, the humans standing behind her. "You protect her." No one answered. "We didn't have to." She took one step forward. "I eat with them now." Silence. Then a whispering click from the leader, some alien signal. A standoff forming in real time. Tension spiked. Until she added, voice steel quiet, "And I will die with them, if needed." Their eyes flared some mix of confusion and alarm. The officer beside me leaned forward and whispered, They don't know how to process that, because this wasn't war. This was family. And they'd never seen that before. Without another word, the three turned and walked out. Didn't fire a shot, didn't take her. Because somehow that one seat at our table had turned a weapon into a home. That night, the mess hall was loud again. Laughter returned. Not at her, but with her. And when someone slid her a plate and said, "You're up for dessert duty," she just grinned. Not because she was accepted, but because she belonged.